don't use it, you lose it.
Wanna know why? Why?
Because you're fucking weak, that's why.
Hey, what's up, everybody? JTC Boy coming at you with the Culture Stream podcast. And here we are, season 3, episode 1. Brothers Jude, Tones, and Zoe are unavailable, but they'll be here on the next ones. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in and joining us. We got the video camera over here. And you'll find us on our Patreon, YouTube, everywhere podcasts are located. So be sure to check us out. Today I am joined with a special guest. He's been on before. He's been known as a Dr. Controversy. He's even been getting recognition on the streets for his podcast with us. And I want to welcome the brother Lawrence Baker over here.
Dr. Controversy. I like that. People will come up and say, hey, it's Dr. Controversy. And I just laugh. I'm like, oh my God, everybody must have been listening. Wow, that's good. That's good. Glad to be back. Glad to be back, JT.
Yeah, glad to have you here with us. Let's jump into it. And we are kind of talking about topics and things like that. And with the Halloween season here, 2024, we are talking about Boogymen. And growing up, we had some Boogymen played a big part in our discipline life. And our parents would be like, you better settle down or else I'm going to send you to your uncle so-and-so and things like that. And the reason why this topic was brought up is my brother Tanner, who is behind the camera and our live stream guy, he's known as a family boogeyman. So all our nieces and nephews, whenever they're being naughty and carrying on in a rugged way, they'll say, better calm down or behave, I'm going to take you to Tanner. And it just switches everything. But yeah, Lawrence was sitting in Betterbees with us the other day. We're all kind of having lunch, and Tanner, him and Brother Kobe, they got done eating, and as they're walking out, they start walking towards our way, and their car was towards our direction, the exit, and my little guys just started screaming, and man, everybody in the whole little cafe just started looking at us. And after they walked out, they kind of understood that, hey, that's the Boogeyman right there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And they were loud. They were loud. They were screaming bloody murder. And it just came out of nowhere. Everybody was quiet. They walked by and bah! It was screams. And I laugh because one of the white waitresses comes over and is comforting him. I think they even got ice cream out of it. I'm not sure, but they were comforting him like, hey, it's going to be all right. I said they didn't understand that was their boogeyman. And for those of you that don't understand, for always, let's say always, you were deathly scared of uncles because those were your disciplinarians. It's not like that is any which way it is today, because we've gotten away from, what would you call it, the disciplinarian happening from your uncles. And now it's more or less on the point of the father or the mother. And yes, I said mother because I've known some very disciplinarian mothers in my lifetime. So it's fallen to both of those. But JT, I don't know if we went back old way, because it was such a big part of our lives that we were scared of uncles. And granted, JT, I was deathly scared of my dad too. And so I laugh. And this is what I mean by deathly scared. I have an uncle by the name of Hugh Baker, and he was in the council meeting, and this was years ago in Tex, and all of them when we were arguing, and my deal was I don't think we were arguing, we were having a very open discussion that the council was not liking, And I didn't stop. I kept going because I wanted an answer, and somebody had to give me an answer. Anyway, they got very mad to the point that they wanted to walk outside and settle it man to man by fighting.
Yeah.
And I was standing there on this side of the podium. This was on not the old side, but the side that would be in the middle, because now they're in a new building. But I happened to be on this side, and I laughed because Hugh asked me later. He said, Foghorn, because that was my nickname. Foghorn, he said, were you scared that Tex or so-and-so was going to come across the top and fight you or want to pull you outside? And I said, nope. He said, why not? I said, there's only one man that I was ever really, truly scared of, and that was my dad. And he's gone now. So I'm not scared of anybody. They could have come across. And then your uncles, we're scared of too, but they're all gone now. So now it's just me. And what makes it hard is you grow up that way. And if they don't continue it, then you're kind of the bad guy. You're the bad uncle. Because for me, I wanted to discipline my nephews. These are my second oldest sister. I have 3 sisters. And so I was trying to discipline them, and she got mad at me. You don't talk to my children that way. You don't do that to my children. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I stopped. I totally stopped. And they were all like, what's going on with Uncle? Does he not like us anymore? He's not saying anything, or he's not telling us anything. And I was like, well, it's your mom. She said not to tease and be harsh and say things to you that makes you think about your action. Not necessarily grabbing you or spanking you or any of that. I'm just saying, just to make you think about where you're at and how you're acting.
Yeah.
So I laugh. I don't think any of them were scared like your boy was with Tanner, because he totally flipped out. And I remember that when I was a child. So I knew exactly what happened, but it just, I hadn't heard it in a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that if I had a chance, and if I had brothers, other than the Reeves boys, who are my cousins, my other brothers, if they were more in our lives, that they could have handled that disciplinary, I would have loved that, because then you're no longer the bad guy. You're no longer the good guy. You're just dad, because then you have an actual disciplinarian. And that would have relieved a lot of stuff. But that old way, people just don't see that now. And that's why I believe some of our kids don't fear anything,
Yeah.
And it's neither bad nor good. It just hasn't been seen. And I believe after we go, JT, if that's not continued, nobody else will know that as a part of how we grew up. When that happened, I laughed at Orville Fox, and Orville's 60-something, almost 70. He's sitting there going, oh, man, I know how that little guy feels, he said, and Bill Hale used to come. Man, I'd hide, all the way to being a grown man till he died. He said, man, I hated him. I had no reason to, but he scared me. He'd come after me. My mom would come up to Bill and say, hey, these guys have been doing this. And they lived over in Rainbow, old days, right above the high school. And he'd come over and say, hey, where are these guys? Oh, man, he said, oh, me and Fish would be like, oh, my God. And then they would send us over there to see Bill Hale and tell him what we did. And Fish would be knocking on the door, and I'd be standing there, and then the door opened, and Fish would just lose it. He'd just start crying. So I'd have to explain what we did. Get in here, and make them work, or they make them do something, And then I think it was more, though, the fear of what could happen. I don't think people see that as eventually, when your boys grow up, Tanner will be that person that they ask these stupid questions about life, and what about this uncle, and what about, oh, I have a girlfriend. Tanner will be telling about girlfriends, and basically, as a fear tool, without spanking, a fear tool, they're disciplined. And then also they become after a mentor to them to talk. But we never get that far. We never get that far because we're stuck in the fear. And sometimes people are not wanting that, So everything has a circle to it, but we never get to be that, So I thought that was cool when I saw your kids freak out. Boogeyman, serious Boogeyman, and then we're Halloween now. Halloween going on, and the Boogeymen are going to come out again, and a lot of fundraising. JT, you know this. You're on now Little Shell Celebration Committee, 2025, I believe. Is that right, JT? 2025.
Yeah, vice president.
Vice president, one of the old guys of the group, and it catches you, right, JT? You're sitting there going, how can I be the old guy of the group? I'm not even that. You know what I mean, right? Because they're all younger.
Yeah.
They're all younger adults. So I think that's cool. But right now is a big fundraising tool. Little Shell has the Haunted Hall, maybe have a masquerade planned. I don't know. A lot of different things that they'll get their bingos going and fundraising going. And a lot of different communities got all that going on too. I think White Hill was a couple of days ago, and a couple others are coming up. So yeah, a lot of good times. The one that I remember, JT, in all of the deals, I think I was maybe 8 or 9. This is before I went to boarding school, and I don't know what, I was always left all over the reservation with different people. Either as a babysitter, or my mom and dad were going here, or they're doing this, or I don't know. I always say I got left, though. But my grandma came through, and my grandma picked me up. And so we were at Northern Lights for the masquerade. And I was sitting off the corner with my grandma, and all these goblins and ghosts and everything. And now it's kind of tamer, but back then they would come right to your seat and raise heck with you and do all kinds of stuff and laugh. And I always remember sitting there, my grandma would say, don't look at them. Don't pay attention to them. They won't bother you, But when you're a kid, at that time, it was the mummy and the werewolf and vampires, all of these scary stuff that were going on in my lifetime as a child. I look back now at it was a joke, but my deal at that time, these were the scary things.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I didn't know who he was, but here it was Ozzy Gillette, who's no longer with us. Another one of my uncles, and he knew my grandma and he knew me. And I remember he came up and he was a cowboy, he had a mask on, he had a big fifth or a pint in his deal, and he wasn't drinking, but he was dancing around, and then he'd start, ha, 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 ha. He's drinking it in front. And I was like, holy man, and my grandma was like, don't look, it'll be all right. And all through the deal, man, I was just wondering where that cowboy was.
Yeah.
Because out of nowhere, we'd be sitting there, and I kind of got relaxed, and all of a sudden he'd be behind me cackling again. And I was like, what the heck, I was freaked out. And I remember I came outside, and Ozzy was by the truck, and he had his top off, so he couldn't. He was trying to get some air, so he had his mask off, his top off, and he didn't have the same. He had a coat on. It was kind of cool. And I seen Ozzy out there, and I said, hey, Ozzy, how are you going? He goes, how you doing out there? You getting freaked out? I said, yeah, this cowboy's just messing with me. And I didn't realize Ozzy was the one that was doing that. And he goes, well, you got to just look out and look away, and you'll be okay. You'll be okay, Foghorn. You'll be all right. I said, okay, all right, and then I went back in, and here he came in and started raising hell with me and grabbed me. Wanted to take me out to dance. Yeah. My grandma said, just go with him. And I was kind of freaking out, but I went with him. Went out there to dance with them when they were all out there dancing. And then it kind of got all right. And I didn't know till way after that it was Ozzy when they pulled their stuff off. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was all built up through that whole deal until they unmasked. And I was like, holy smokes. And for some reason, Ozzy wasn't with us that long, but I'm like, holy man, I just remember him from childhood. He's just etched into my memory because of that. And he was just having a good time. He was just dancing and having a good time. And I was like, wow, man, the things that can happen, at a masquerade when you're young and you don't know and all that kind of stuff just kind of freaked me out. But my grandma was like, just don't look at him, just don't whatever, don't pay attention. And it was good advice, but again, you see that now. And of course, you've got goblins and everything. Since I've been an announcer or a singer, they come right up and they raise heck with you, or they do whatever.
No.
And you know them, they're your bros, or there's some other person, or I've had a couple of women do some things that were not appropriate. And then you're like, oh, that's some guy. And then they get unmasked and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a girl, and you're like, what the? Of course, because you're dressed, it's a goblin. You don't know if it's a boy goblin, girl goblin. Anyway, and so it's been that kind of way. And then even with my kids, some of them freaked out, or some of them had a good time, at the masquerades.
Yeah,
Just part of life.
Yeah, it was pretty good. We went to Twin Buttes on Friday. Saturday was Partial, and then yesterday was White Shield.
Yeah.
And man, they're just Twin Buttes was tame, relaxed. Partial, they kind of got carried away messing with all the singers, and then White Shield, holy man, they just went all out. Nobody was safe that was sitting in the drum, especially we sitting in the middle,
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it was kind of going back to the Tanner situation over at the Better Bees. So Margaret, she's the waitress that came up, and she tried to console the boys, and she really gave them like a little spiky ball. And Mato, he looks at Margaret and he says, "Can you hit him with your pan?" It's like, no, I don't think I could do that. I might get in trouble. But yeah, Tanner, he's quite the boogeyman for the little guys. I mean, it's like my son's kind of he's messing up in school, acting up and not listening. And I said, well, I think Uncle Tanner's going to have to go to school with you. And holy man, he just jumped up, took off to his room and started crying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what we need. That's what us guys needed. My mom, she was really good at calling on my uncles, and man, it was just, oh, we're going to kick your ass and things like that. And it was like, a lot of people would be like, oh, that's child abuse. But it's like, no, it's not child abuse. It was discipline, if you're, do the crime, do the time type thing, and us guys were pretty wild growing up. I don't know how my mom did it with my two brothers. We have a little sister, but yeah, she probably would have been the fourth brother.
It's wild because you have to, and again, that brings up, JT, a little bit of something of discipline and taking care of your kids. For myself, I was a bad child. Maybe that's why I'm a bad adult. I don't know. And they used to say that the abuse is what they would call it, but the discipline that I received from my father, again, in his eyes, was probably at 10% of the ruggedness that he had to go through in order to be right. And what I mean is not everybody's beating you up all the time, but what I'm saying is, it's one of those deals that I've never understood, JT. I've never understood this sentiment. This hurts me more than it hurts you. And I never understood that sentiment when the person that's saying that to me has a big belt behind them and is whipping the hell out of me, But it has to do with that I want you to be okay and be right and live your life right. And so by not listening to your mom, or not doing your chores, or not picking up in your room, or watching your sisters, or any of these things could be construed as wrong. So for me, I got beat up all the time, and I don't really think I did in my life, because I always think, well, maybe I needed it, Yeah. But I've had some relatives that have come to me and said, I can't believe you survived your father's beatings. And I was like, wow, was it that bad? And it probably was, but I got sent away to boarding school, so I dissipated on all of those disciplinary things. But when you're getting beat for being a knucklehead kid, and then you're getting beat for all your sisters who are acting like knuckleheads, that's 4 times the beating that you're getting other than yourself. So yeah, maybe I went through a lot, but I still believe that there has to be a fear of something or someone in order to get what you're doing. And so I put that fear into my boys. And after a good whipping, one whipping, two whippings in their lives, then everything else was just controlled by my voice. So if I got mad, hey, man, they'd just stop. They knew the whooping was coming next. So they were like, okay, I'll be good, And so you control that way. And then after a while, once they get to be a certain age, you don't have to do that, And then so my deal always was, in what I always wanted to see as a young person is, what I got when I turned 18 was you're on your own now. You got to figure out when you're going to leave the house because you're not coming back. This is, you're 18, you're on your own. So you went to college, took off, you did whatever. I ended up playing at the University of North Dakota for a couple of years. Then I came back and I had to find my own place. Couldn't go move back into the house. So I had to find my own place. Then I ended up at Minot for a while. Minot State playing football. But what I've tried to do and see in my children is hopefully be some kind of sounding board, with your children. Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I raised you, you should know what to do. But at the same time, I'm here to bounce things off of. So if I think things for me, this is more important or that's more important, it's not necessarily that important to my child, but at least they get to look at a long way, whichever way they choose. Yeah. And whichever way they choose, whether it works or don't work, they still got to clean it up, So I always envisioned, and I never got that far with my uncles and all of that, was that they would turn out to be that kind of a mentor to you. But they all passed away, before I turned 20-something. They're all gone, So you're like, wow, you just got the fear part. You never got to get to the part where maybe they became good friends or mentors or something like that. You hoped. I'm sure in your case, JT, you can relate to what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like rather than disciplinary throughout the rest of your life, it's also a guidance and also, like you said, a mentor. But yeah, I mean, we as indigenous people, I think every tribe has that. Yeah. And let us know if your tribe has that, disciplinary, the boogeymen, so to speak. But let's take a quick intermission. We got a special guest here. We got a little father-son duel coming at you. We'll be right back. You're my only one forever. Hatred won't die. Alrighty, we are back. We are talking about the father-son duel here. Our next special guest is Mr. Zane Baker. He's quite an extraordinary young man doing some awesome things out at the Interpretive Center, trying to retrieve artifacts for our people from museums and, would you say private collectors? They got private collectors?
Yeah, different institutions, museums, schools, anyone who's got some stuff, I guess.
Nice. But yeah, shout out to Zane for coming on. And he is the offspring of Mr. Lawrence Baker over there. Dr. Controversy. So yeah, let's talk about, actually, we kind of brought it up before, your dad and myself. We talked about the Little Shell Powwow Committee. And you want to talk about that? Give some shout outs.
I can sure try. For the 2024, 2025, 2026, or however the years go, I've been chosen to be this year's Powwow Committee. So great undertaking. President, yeah. I don't know what I said before. So for those of you who may or may not know, kind of grown up around the Powwow Circle. Obviously, this man sitting to my right is my father, Mr. Controversy, or MC, Sacred Voice, Smooth Voice, Elvis impersonator, whatever you want to call him. But I grew up around it, and then I'm slowly, as I become older and older, been getting more opportunities to work in the arena, not only just to partake and dance, but actually get to be in the arena, kind of directing the traffic, if you will. And now that I'm getting another chance to be president, because I have been president before, but this time it feels like I'm awake in a sense. So I'm kind of making more of these decisions myself. And previously I've been on Forebears. I have been on it. My dad has been on it. But in those runs, usually he's making the call. So now this year comes around and I'm a little bit older. I don't know about a little bit wiser, but I'm starting to do things a little bit about myself and kind of going through it. So it's kind of exciting. Huge shout out and thank you to my crew and my staff. I asked JT here to be my vice president. I asked a young man, Sydney Meek, to be my treasury secretary. And I asked Elizabeth Bluestone, or Elizabeth Lone Bear, as it's legally known as, to be my treasurer. And then we're asking some princesses here and there, MJ Aguilar, and we're hoping to knock out a few more people, more directors, and round about our committee here pretty soon.
Oh, Waylon too. Waylon.
Yeah, Waylon, he's a director.
Yeah. Just got picked up.
Definitely. So it's exciting. Kind of hard to think of the people on the spot, especially if you're someone like me who's kind of grown up very, not saying too much, always kind of thinking my things in the corner. And now that it's my chance and my time to kind of step up to the plate, kind of have to think of names, but kind of harder than you think. So that's where the questions come in. And is this person good? Or what do you think about this person? And very hard to do it by yourself. So I'm grateful there's people around me who I can always ask questions to.
Yeah, yeah. And if you guys want to, if you enjoy his voice, Mr. Son of the Sexy here, head over to the Three Tribes podcast. It's hosted by Zane and various hosts over at the Interpretive Center. And if you ever see this man work, he's always organized, always doing his thing. Shout out to Zane again. Awesome job and congratulations. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of this Apollo committee and looking forward to it. Like I said, excited, nervous, and scared all in one.
Definitely. And even though I look organized on the outside, I'm probably not organized. And that's something my dad over here to the right could probably attest to as he peeks in my room every once in a while.
Very unorganized.
Very unorganized. What's this guy doing?
Very, what would you call procrastinator? Which I'm sorry to say he gets that from his dad too. But he's got a lot of good people. And how, JT, we've trained or talked about these moments. It's always tried to include those people that if given an opportunity to serve would appreciate and love the moment and not necessarily people that have been on families that have been on several times. We did, when we were looking at people, JT, you've never been on before here, done a lot of stuff other places. You're kind of the old man of the group and an advisor. Then you had Sydney, our secretary, and Sydney is going to be a year old in December. So you got a lot of parents on that side, the Conklin family, that have been past Antelope Society members and supporters. And so their family has kind of been out of powwow for a while, so they're back in it and are very excited because of that little boy. And all the others, Mo Aguilera was totally excited when Zane came to ask and was excited about to do whatever she could do. And Waylon was also excited when they went to meet him. He works in the eyeglass program. But again, never served on a committee. And so, they're kind of learning it as they go, and again, that not to take away from everybody that knows everything, but the journey of learning the powwow and the journey of how you put it on and what you want to do to fundraise and what you want it to look like at the end now is all of you as a group's journey, and then whoever else you pick up. You know, I always try to tell my family and all of the different kids is, how do you pick people? And it's like, how would you want to be recognized and looked at? And then the other thing is always to encourage people wherever you go, to give them the opportunity. It may be the only time that these groups are together or ever on a powwow. You never know, you know, but it's what you looked at. And the difference, Zane has been a president of Forebears, which is a position chose by the former. But the Little Shell is the Antelope Society members that get together that say, we're trusting you at the powwow, and we don't want to put you with anybody that, you know, might not be in the same space as you. So we're going to give it to you as the president and let you decide the people you want to work with. And I think, JT, with you included, it's a really good group, energetic, and I look forward to all the fundraising and stuff that they want to do. And it's the first time, so it's an experience that they're all grateful to have. So I mean, I appreciate all the picks that Zane did, and he's got 3 or 4 more to make. And again, it looks like a real good committee. A very slow starting committee, but a very good committee. So again, you know, when we again, JT, and we were talking about this earlier about kids and youth and all of that, you know, sometimes they don't follow how we would like them to follow. But again, as long as they're moving and getting things done, you know, it's a lot more progress. So,
yeah. Well, since we're on the topic here, you know, Fort Berthold hosts some amazing powwows, and they are kind of the premier when it comes to the celebrations during the summer. And a lot of people don't understand that these celebrations are not casino funded. And people will kind of have something to say when it comes to the powwow getting over at 4 o'clock in the morning and such, because they're kind of, I don't want to say, like, I'm not trying to say anything to sound mean, but, you know, it's not a casino powwow where we can get out at 11 o'clock, you know, run through everything, you know. We, in Fort Berthold, it's a lot different because the powwows are put on by, well, the segments.
Yeah, in a way.
So like segments and the community as a whole. And we talk about fundraising. And for us guys, we're going to do bingos and such. And every powwow committee segment, Mandaree, Twin Buttes, White Shield, Partial, Forebears, and yeah, Little Shell. We all do bingos to help raise money. But let's talk about the difference between this type of a powwow being like a committee funded powwow versus like a casino funded powwow. Like, what would be the biggest difference in your opinion? Let's start with Zane.
I guess off the top of my head, it's kind of who's in charge. Kind of who's in charge, kind of who's running it, and gets to who makes the calls. Of course, if it's a casino powwow, there's a little bit of funds already there. There isn't much they have to do other than the weekend time, where it's game time. Hey, who do we want to call in to direct the arena? Who do we want to call in to be the masters of ceremonies? Who do we want to call in to tabulate? And at the end of the day, maybe it's a committee decision, or maybe it's just the head of a chair, or it could be one of the higher-ups in a casino. I wouldn't know. I'm not in one of those positions. But for us, when I was asked, and you hear the stories about what the arena is, you hear the stories about how many times did the celebration move and what it meant to certain people. And it really brings more of that human aspect, potentially, into it. And what you're talking about when, okay, hey, the doors close at a certain time, you have to be out here because our maintenance staff wants to get home and everybody wants to get home, and we want to make it short and sweet, and we want to run through it like most of these indoor powwows are. Adjacent to that, us being an outdoor powwow and having these other opportunities to do things, it allows us to kind of go at our own pace, at our own pace, at our own time, because we did fundraise all year. When there was $0 in the bank account, we were the ones who put in the 20. We were the ones who put in the 100 and then got it to 1,000, then got it to 3,000, constantly doing bingos every week, constantly doing fundraising, going to different games, selling cards, sending out letters, talking to different companies, anything and everything, making breakfast burritos, doing lunches, anything you could think of.
Yeah.
Anything you can think of to make that $200,000 to $300,000 celebration in the summer. So when you get to a point like that, you want to celebrate. Yeah. You want to make the most of that time. And I guess depending on who you are, maybe you'll go a little bit later, maybe you go a little bit earlier, but that's always the exciting part when you're picking your committee and when you're picking out certain people in certain places, you can kind of dictate of how you want the power to flow. Yeah. Do I want all dancers? Do I want all singers? Like last year, Forebears, huge singing contest. And of course, Junior, Cedric Baker Jr. over there, he's a well-renowned singer. So he's going to do a little bit more showcase for the singers. And that's totally okay. That's totally relevant. And someone like myself who hasn't really dabbled into singing as much, like you two both have been, I'm a dancer. So I look at it through a different lens. So it's really a cool opportunity and a different opportunity now that I picked my committee to showcase a little bit of their aspects, like my father is talking about. Maybe it's not the people who have always been on the Powwow Trail forever, but they're still people in our community. And at the end of the day, for myself, that's what this is going to represent. Not only the community as a whole and how we're going to be showcased with our visitors who come and our visitors who travel, but who they actually are in the community, because we're from here. Yeah. We live here and we know our ways, hopefully, and if not, we'll ask some questions and we'll learn. And that's probably the best part at the end of the day, is the education behind it and that continuation of that learning. And maybe we learn at different paces, maybe we learn at different ways, but hopefully by the end of this, each and every one of us on the committee knows what it takes to get something like this off the ground.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I agree with that. How about you, Dr. Controversy?
Well, the difference between, because I've done a lot of these, so I know the difference, and the difference is, it's kind of like exactly what Zane said. You're not dictated by the families that have fundraised in a casino powwow. You're dictated by a committee who hopefully knows, and again, you don't really have exactly what Zane's saying about Junior or Zane. Junior being a dancer and singer, and a well-known singer. So I mean, creator of songs. So I mean, a lot of that is heavy singing contest, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And then Zane, a heavy dance contest. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you get into the arena of the casino powwow, they may not have that kind of thought at all. They might just say, here's the show, we've got these guys to run it, and that's all that's going to happen. And then the other thing too is, you don't have families coming forth and doing specials. Like the committee one, they'll be saying, hey, so-and-so is getting out of the service and I want to do something, or these people were adopted, or a memorial. We want to have a memorial. So Little Shell's geared to more or less Wednesday and Thursday to do that, Friday afternoon for any final stuff or giveaways, and then we go right into the powwow. Of course, it depends on the committee whether you do your giveaways like they did last year, all on Thursday. That's an agreement. Then a couple others did their giveaways at different times, which disrupts the powwow. But in the casino powwows, you don't have that disruption. And then maybe you have 5 specials. And so you might want to do 1 Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 2 Sunday afternoon, and then you're done. So you really don't have a time constraint. And that's where they will write up an actual program, and you follow the program, basically, because you know which time you have to do all of these things. With ours, you know, anything can happen. We've had specials that'll go on at 11 o'clock before anything comes over. Some want to have elders, golden age dance. They're special. They're going to do 2 songs at 11. And why not? They're already ready. Golden age is usually ready by 10. And because they're always prepared and they know to stay in their outfit all day. So again, you have something like that. And then sometimes you lose time in community powwows because everybody wants to be the show Saturday night. They think that time slot is a big deal and it might eat up your time. Casino powwows, it's not like that. Everything is run on a certain time. You get out on a certain time. You know what you're going to do, So again, it's a lot different in running the community powwows as it is in a fixed casino powwow. And some will say, oh, I like it, and some will say not. If you are a dancer or singer, maybe our committees need to be out of the way by Thursday night. It really raises havoc for us as committee members who want to take care of our visitors because our visitors aren't there yet. And so we end up donating to whoever's in the facility, and that is sometimes tough because you got all these people that came from California or came from Oklahoma or over from Grand Forks that are there to support you, and they only can make it Friday, Saturday, and you don't, maybe you call them out and then you give it to them when they're going to show up. But, again, that's the little difficulties of trying to do that, because once you mix the giveaway into the powwow, then a lot of people says, well, it slows down the dancing and it slows down the deal. So you try to have it a little bit sooner. Just like your memorials will take an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. You try to have them on Wednesday. You have days for them to take care of those things. And in reality, with the Little Shell celebration, all week long, there are ceremonies going on. And what I mean by that is Zane's on the Kit Fox Society. They met, the Crazy Dogs met, the Black Mouse Society met. I'm sure the women's societies, the enemy women's societies, all of them will get together, or they'll have a different thing for recognition, because we bring out all the societies on Sunday night. So sometimes they'll do stuff, they'll call each other together, and that's throughout the week of camping. And people don't realize that, because sometimes you're over at a camp, somebody's getting a name, or we're at a camp and they're feeding and giving away because we're adopting somebody. And that week for Little Shell, which is different than any, is kind of that homecoming to be back here and to take care of all of these things. We might put society members into Kit Fox. We might bring them into different deals. We might pay for different positions. So all of that stuff is going on, naming, feathering, clanship, all of that is going on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the arena, but later on they might come into say, this is what happened, and so they acknowledge it, like all the chickens got together and we adopted so-and-so, and they let that be known, so because that happened. And people will say, well, geez, I'm a chicken and nobody told me. Well, it happened on Thursday and they all took care of that, and all the chickens were there, got something, and this person is a member now. Part of our ways of what we do, sometimes they'll save it for that week. So that's another difference that goes on. And of course, like I say, JT, if you ever go to a celebration on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation and you go away hungry, you definitely did something wrong, because there's a feed going on everywhere hour, almost. So
yeah, those are awesome responses, and that is true. A lot of people, they complain about a special going late, but like Zane and Lawrence said, we plan all year for this. We take time to raise money for this, and we might not get the slot that we want, or if that is the slot we want, things kind of happen to run past. But it happens how it happens, and we want to do our best to fulfill the commitment that we've made. But with that being said, another thing that maybe we can kind of shed light on is, so Fort Berthold is known for its singing, dancing, and its specials, and sometimes the extravagant specials. why is it that as our people here on the Fort Berthold Reservation, they and we're not trying to knock any other reservations or anything like that, but when we give back in a big way. Donations and like Kilby's was it $45,000 grass dance special, you know, and to honor his family and coming back to the circle, and the special that was held for the Lincoln family
In Mandarin, yeah.
Yeah, the pink dress or
Yeah.
the Iron Woman or whatever. So why is it that our people, you know, in your opinion, do it in a big way like that? You know,
Do you want to go first?
I can go first. And one of the things, you know, people don't understand, and I've said this a lot, and I've heard this a lot, that, this is why I clarify. I think a lot has to do with when people sit there and say, oh my gosh, the people here are giving away again, and all they do is give to their own people, you know? And I hear that. I've heard that a lot. So when I explain things, the thing that people don't understand is the first protocol of giveaway of the Hiradza people, the Mandan people, and the Arikara people is to take care of clanship. The Hiradza people take care of the clan aunt and clan uncle. And sometimes they're people that are not related to us but are part of our clan. The Arikaras take care of grandmother, grandfather, grandchild, grandboy, or grandgirl in their giveaways. And that's how they have sustained. And the Mandans are so diluted into the Hiradzas that they don't have their stuff, but they usually have a clan, even though they're Mandan. So I think for people that don't understand, you know, why do we give such good gifts or such good whatevers right off the bat, is because we're already preparing. This is what we believe is in giving the best stuff for our clan uncles and aunts to hold on to. So when we die, that is the stuff that we barter on. So when we do that in our lifetime of doing things, JT and Zane, you both understand this, is we can't do things alone. And there are a lot of people that come to help us. You know, I know for my son Zane, I'm very grateful for my sister Kat and all of her friends who are always helping Zane with either beadwork or new cloth work or any of these different things. So when we get done, it's always that, you know, they helped us, and we want to take care of that. You know, I know friends of Kathy like Patsy Grant and Kelly and them that have all given us good words, and you know, they come a long way. So we either try to help them out with some good gifts or a little bit of coffee money. And so all of those things, when we give, if we're going to do that, we might as well recognize as many people as we can. And the reason also for that is, I don't know. I know right now in my lifetime, I've been on the powwow committees probably over 10 times. So you really can't take that for granted that you're going to be on. Once you get on, you know, you're trying to take care of everybody who has helped you at a certain age. So JT, look at the age you are now, and this may be the first time, right, at home that you've been on the powwow committee.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that I know you are grateful for and that helped or said encouraging words, you know, and you want to take care of them. And this is your once in a lifetime opportunity to do that, because we don't know if it's going to come around again.
Yeah, because you don't want to leave anybody out.
You don't want to leave anybody out, because this is the first time. And, you know, for us that have done it a long time too, there are other people, you know, that we've thanked and have helped us. And there are other people that come into our lives too that we want to take care of, wipe the tears of, or any of these different things that come into our circle. So again, there's never a list that said, well, these are the only 4. I don't know who else after this. I mean, when you think about it, there's so many, and then we bring so much stuff, because then the other part of that too is, what if so-and-so and so-and-so show up? You know, we don't know that they're here yet, you know, and then they show up and you want to take care of them, you know. So that's why all of that gift giving gets to be big. The other thing too is, and I know Zane will probably answer this more as a dancer, but he has been and won, and again, maybe this is your dad bragging, but has won some major specials and some really good dancers. He's won those specials in Canada. And so there's a lot of chicken dancers that respect his style. And you know, when you have 50, 60 guys in the arena competing for a special, and in where was that at? Brian Waskowitz's special, you remember? That was in Thunderchild.
Yeah.
And they brought that special to Thunderchild, and 60 to 80 dancers, and they weeded him out all the way through, and Zane became the winner of that dance. And so that gives a lot of credibility for watching him dance and do whatever. And then even the gentleman that special, he was alive, picked him. And so that says a lot about him and watching him dance. So that becomes a lot of respectability with a lot of different dancers. And I know from that, there was a lot of people that he talked to. So he has a lot of chicken dance friends that'll come into the States or come down that respect Zane and hey, when's your special going on? Or I'm going to do this. What, am I going to make it? Or I'm not going to dance, but I want to come down to just be in your special and then when I head out. You know, so you have a lot of those people that come, and that's why you're trying to make your special a way that serves like maybe 4 of these and 4 of these will win. So now 8 win instead of just make it a 4-place whatever, and then give some money that gives whatever, and then also give some consolations because, you know, maybe they just made it down on a wing and a prayer, and maybe they just need a little coffee money or gas money to get back, and so that extra 100 or whatever will get them to where they're going. And Zane knows this more than anybody as a dancer, you know, because you got to get a blank a lot before you get to I'm number 1 or number 2, number 3. So I think in the specials and that, I think a lot of people are trying to make it competitive and easier and a little bit more money than most because they know maybe in our specials that me and Zane put on or do or whatever, usually it's a good place, you know, 1,008,642, but then there's money on the side, like maybe a round everybody got 100, or maybe they're, you know, before the round that kicked off they got another 100 or they got 200, you know. So it's trying to distribute whatever I raised and what I want to do so it encompasses more than 4 people. And so that's one of the things. And then being grateful for the drums, you know. Zane has had a lot of good drums that come and sing and take care of it, that he's also taking care of. That's extra, you know, as a singer. So a lot of singers will come down and say, yeah, if you want us to sing, you know, that, hey, they must like us. We're singing for specials, you know. So all of that is taking to another level. And so there's all of that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a giveaway and a special. You know, sometimes maybe all you can afford is the special because you can't gather enough material goods, you know, and maybe you just take care of your clan and clan uncle, and then you just have a special. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a part of what we do also. But again, it's those types of things that heighten the powwow to be like, hey, I'm going to come down there. I'm going to come down there and be there because, you know, or, you know, sometimes families will feed, hey, all of those grass dancers or all of those, let's do that. You know, the last special that Zane had, we ended up honoring, unbeknownst to us, because we didn't know any were still alive, that were the bustle-wearing grass dancers. And fortunately for us, Rooster and Dustin Whitford, they called those people out that were where they learned it from. The last of those that wore bustles for grass dance. There were still 2 or 3 of them that were alive, that were old men. And so Zane hit on something that honored those men. You know, they were up there. They didn't know what to do. You know, they were shaking hands with them, and they said, this is where it comes from. And so we were glad to know that after that. We didn't have that intention, but if we had, we would have probably called them out. But we didn't know anybody still existed that danced that. I mean, it's so old, but these guys were in their 70s when they came out. So that was exciting to see. And, you know, the dancers that danced in it, it was something that hadn't been thought of and brought back at all. That's a part of our way of life. So they were like, wow, this was really cool that you thought of that. And Zane had only seen that from the archives in what he's been doing with his research, that was something. And so just trying to highlight different things and make it worth spending your weekend at our powwows, you know. And again, like all the food and giveaway, you know, I tease all of the visitors because, you know, after a while they come, you've seen it, JT, they all come running out like this, the last thing that's left to eat in the world or something. They all come running out, or, you know, and it's like, you know, we try to take care of all of our visitors and get them something so they can go away, you know. And I'll tease on the mic and say, it's kind of cold up here now, so you might need a snagging blanket or any of those jokes, you know. But again, we're grateful for the visitors being there, and so that gives them a little of something. And I know when Dakota Kennedy was here for his first time, I think he got away with 8 or 9 blankets from being a visitor.
And a couple pillows.
And a couple pillows, and he still talks about that. So again, you don't know, and that's what that is about. So hopefully I answered the question, JT. I just kind of went on and on.
Yeah, definitely. You brought up a lot of good points, even from the how you're going to host it and why you're going to host it. But
Yeah.
I guess to poke the same vein, if we're really kind of going deep down for myself, and since we brought up a little bit of my work, it's really got to go back to the heritage and to the culture. In my tour and in my studies and kind of understanding and continually learning about our way of life here on the MHA Nation Reservation here in Fort Berthold, it's very much giving. We're a very giving people. We're a very inviting people. When we look in the historical sense, we want to do good by everybody. Do good by everybody. When they come, we want to give them something. When they leave, we want to give them more than what they came from. And of course, it's functional at the time, because when they leave and they go off and they go back home and they visit their neighbors and they visit their traders, what are they going to say about us?
Yeah.
Is it going to be something good? Is it going to be something bad? Are they going to talk about our food? Are they going to talk about our landscape? Are they going to talk about our dances? Are they going to talk about our songs? Are they going to talk about our jokes and the way we visit and who we are? And these are the things that, unbeknownst to all of us, we still kind of feel. We still have a connection there that we want to make sure we give everybody something. We want to make sure we acknowledge our people. And even going back to kind of talk about, as a dancer, you want to showcase and you want to bring people back home, because maybe not everybody has the luxury of leaving, or they have to kind of stay around home. Or this one time you did go up to Canada and you heard some beautiful songs and some wicked dancers up there, and you make those connections and you make those friends, and all of a sudden you have a whole powwow circuit in California and in Eastern and Western Canada, and you want to bring some of that showcase home and bring those dancers home. And of course, as a dancer, for myself, I never like going out to specials and dancing one song and then I leave. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? I guess I can watch. But for me and myself, I like to dance. I like to move. It's an expression of myself, as I wasn't always someone to use my words like my father has, and to connect with people and to be comfortable doing all these things. And even though now I'm on a couple podcasts and you can come check me out at the Interpretive Center, and I'm doing all these kinds of things, I never would have thought I would have done those kinds of things. But to be able to bring those people home is really cool, and showcase all those dancers, and of course, making sure everybody leaves with something. And you just want to do good. And maybe it's changing of formats and doing something wicked and doing something crazy. I know for myself, because we already touched on dancing more than one song, usually I like to go in waves. Let's dance the first night, and whoever wins, we'll see you in the finals, and we'll give those who didn't get a chance to dance again in the second night. Or even if you did get on, you're more than welcome to come out and dance again, because at the end of the day, for myself, that's kind of what it's all about. But even through history and everything like that, through work and through research and archiving and reading and continually learning here at the college and hearing stories, that's just kind of who we are at the end of the day. And I really feel like that's something we still are and we still like to protrude, and it's just innate in us somehow.
Definitely. Well, those are some awesome responses and kind of touching base on why we do things the way we do here on the Fort Berthold Reservation. And there's plenty more information that we could share. There's plenty more experiences that I know Lawrence and Zane have on powwow committees and such. But we hope that this gives you an insight of the Fort Berthold powwow lifestyle here. And it's not trying to be better. It's not trying to floss or flaunt. It's because we are a giving people, and we want to do the best we can for our ancestors, for the culture, the heritage, the traditions, because that's who we are. And we want to do our best for our visitors, so that way they can go home with something, something that they could, hopefully monetarily or something that keep them warm, always fed. And like Lawrence said, if you came here and you're hungry, you didn't do it right. But yeah, we were kind of discussing earlier, I think this might be our last topic before we close out, but Lawrence brought up an interesting topic about boarding schools. And Lawrence went to a boarding school. My grandparents on my dad's side and my mom's side, great-grandparents. No, even my grandma and grandpa. They went to boarding school in Flandreau, my grandma and grandpa. And then my dad's dad, he went to boarding school too. And, we all have family in our bloodline that has faced the difficulties of boarding school and things like that. And Lawrence, you want to share what you were talking about with the president?
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to bring it up, but for myself, I was in boarding school from 78, 79 until 85. So I was in boarding school like that. My dad was in boarding school from, he got sent to Pier. He was in the day school, I think, till he was about 8 or 9, maybe 10. Then they sent him to Pier. He spent his time in Pier, and then he went off to Flandreau. And for those of you that don't understand, it was in boarding school. It's not a continuous thing. So when they were done in May, they would be shipped back home. And then they would work the ranches and farms that we had. And then come August, September, they would be shipped out again. The bus would take them. Now, that is my dad. So my dad's dad, Philip and Delia was in a school down in Bismarck, and a boarding school. And my grandfather was sent away to Chemawe. And he only had an 8th grade education. He knew how to write, he knew how to read, but he made his way back. And you have to remember that the embarrassing part of all of this, JT and Zane, was my grandfather was already 16, 17. And so to embarrass them, they would put him in the classroom with the little kids. And so when they sent him to Chemawe and they did that to him, he didn't want to have nothing to do with it. He figured he'd already had enough learning. He had an 8th grade education and came back from Chemawa and never went back. He ended up getting married after that and doing his thing. So he was in boarding school. So on my mom's side, on the Kalak side, both my grandma and my grandpa also attended boarding school, and the famous Kalak that I'm related to on my mom's side was Pete Kalak, and Pete Kalak played ball with Jim Thorpe over in Carlisle, and you can look that up. It's part of history, and he was a relative of ours on the Kalak side. So we've had boarding school on each side. So, you know, when I got a chance to listen to, I believe he did that speech down in Arizona, the President Biden, and a lot of people got a chance to go, and they didn't know it was going to be as historic, I guess you would say. Myself and Charity, my girlfriend, she pulled it up and she said, "Hey, this is what happened today. Would you want to listen to it to me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll listen to it with you." And it got into it, and at the point where Biden was apologizing, and not just apologizing for sending our children to boarding school from the 1920s to the 1970s, he was apologizing for dismantling our way of life, which he acknowledged that by stealing those children away from their parents, there's two generations that now lack the culture and language of their people, because they were sent to schools where you couldn't talk their language. You were beaten for saying different things. And so it brought us, myself and Charity, to the point, because her dad, her mom, and those other relatives have spent time in boarding school. So it was, what would you call it, real tearful. So we were both kind of crying, and I don't mean crying like we're just blubbering, but we both had tears in our eyes listening to this. Mm-hmm. And after it was done, you know, I really felt good that it was said, and but I also felt bad because I'm about the third generation to go to boarding school, and on both sides of my mom and my dad. And so those people, I think of my grandfather, the late Philip Baker, I think of him, and I think that he would have wanted that apology to say that they did something wrong. So it was kind of like, this is really great, but it really doesn't capture those two generations that you did that to. And the third generation that were there or not, it's nice to hear that policy was what it was, and it was destructful, and that you apologize. And I believe, JT, and I was reading, Charity was telling me this earlier, I think it was only 6 or 7 times that American presidents have ever apologized for anything. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of historic in that respect. And then the controversy in me, you know, because I'm Dr. Controversy, and all the politics that are going on makes me wonder, why now? Why did it come out now? And is it a ploy to get a Democratic president to say this, to get out the native vote and get us all to support the Democrats and vote for Kamala? I mean, I don't know, you know, but it looks like one of those things, because, you know, I'm controversial, so I'm like wondering, where is this coming from? It was great to hear, don't get me wrong. And the other thing that I think it'll help, JT, is the historic trauma. And we talk about historic trauma and what is historic trauma. Everybody here has some form, for me. I don't think Zane does, because I didn't put that in him. And what I mean by, he might still have it, but I didn't intentionally do that. But one of the things that I have historic trauma from, and I never was a part of this, was the flooding of our land. Yeah. And the person that put that into me was my grandma Delia. She, as old as she was still upset and still mad of all of the beautiful land that her father and her grandparents had that was entrusted to her that they just took. And so it made her angry. And so that trauma of that I carry. I've never seen it. I've never been down there. But my grandma would say that to me. I didn't hear that from my grandfather. I only heard it from my grandmother. The only thing my grandpa told me about it is when they had to move the cattle up from the bottom to the top before the flooding, he lost over 30 head because they froze on top because they couldn't handle being that cold. They're usually on the bottom where it's pretty mild climate in the little valley that we used to live in Independence. So that's all he would say. So I didn't really get that trauma, but I did hear the stories, not only from my dad, but from my grandpa about boarding school and how they treated him. So in a way, I'm glad to try to release that and say that they did apologize. And so I'm grateful for that. But I would have loved, I guess the crying was about, I would have loved to have my grandpa hear that, but for us going forward now, it won't be, hopefully won't be that much trauma, but it hopefully also opens up, like they said, and we'll see, because we've been lied to before, all of the applications to federal dollars that we get denied because we didn't do this or we didn't do that or we didn't give this process or that, we didn't double copy this, we didn't, all of those processes which make it a hindrance to apply for or receive federal aid that's there, they were going to lessen the criteria in which we can then access those funds. So again, that's stuff we'll see later on, and maybe depending how the election goes, we'll see, whether it's still the Democrats or it's Trump. We don't know. And people always say to us, especially for me, like, why aren't you a Trump supporter? And I just don't agree with anything he says. But one of the things where we're at is they believe that if Trump gets in, okay, then it's drill, baby, drill. So now all of a sudden in the Bakken, we're going to open up another 150 holes in the ground looking for oil. So that would be something that would benefit our area. But at the same time, I don't see us getting off of fossil fuel right away. So I still believe we're going to drill in a capacity still until we get to all of those wind energy, solar energy, all of those other energies at a point where it's sustainable. So I still think it's going to happen no matter what. But all of these things take into account with all of this, but it was very historical that Biden said that, and I just wonder too, Biden in all the stuff that he's done that we don't know about. He was a young congressman, senator in the 60s when these policies were in full force towards the end. So maybe it's a way for him to come clean on an issue and wake up the native vote to support the Democrats. I'm not sure, but I was very happy. Both of us, me and Charity, were very emotional about that because I don't think we'd ever thought we would see something like that in our lifetime because our parents and our grandparents hadn't seen anything like that. And it's tough, it's tough on both sides because we just got back from the Navajo Nation. We were over for Tuba City Fair. We were there for Elders Day, but we were there all week. And, there's wood to gather. I actually went and was picking piñons. And JT, I don't think I've ever knelt and done any of that kind of stuff since I was in boarding school because you got to kneel and get up and kneel and get up and kneel and get up, picking piñons everywhere you go. And I was only out there like three hours or 4, but I was sore for 3 days. So again, that life, and gathering all the wood, they were still gathering wood when we were there for the winter. And we left, and it happened to snow in Summit on the Navajo reservation. So they kind of got some weather. I hope we weren't, brought that or left that. But anyway, that I think was historical for a lot of our individuals that were traumatized, and maybe hopefully it reconciles some of us that wonder why our relatives, when they came back, just didn't know, or hid behind alcohol or hid behind something. Because I believe, JT and Zane, that PTSD did come from being in boarding schools. I mean, one day you're with your family and you're doing whatever, and you have long hair and you have a way of life. Next thing you know, you're getting your hair all cut off. You're being given white people clothes. You speak your language. Your mouth is washed out. You're beaten for whatever. And that had to be a whole destruction of life. So, I mean, this apology, again, like I said, is really something to hear. But at the same time, you hope you don't carry on the trauma that your family endured. But like Indians, indigenous people, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. So, a lot of those horror stories, our families didn't share with us. And I'm kind of grateful in that way, because I don't carry that kind of trauma of the PTSD that they endured. But, I had my run-in with little nuns that look like Yoda, 4'11", burning my hands, cleaning the pots at New England St. Mary's. And the hotter the water, her hands were numb to that scorching hot water. But that was what they said, cleanliness next to godliness, with the hot water for the pots and pans. And I had to go through that 3 times throughout the year. So I got that little nun in my first, 6th grade, 7th grade, and she had a stool that she would get on. And then I'd have to move the stool because I was too tall and do all the pots and pans while she was doing them, and the water was scorching hot. So I remember that. And later on in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade, it became lay people. The nuns weren't as ferocious, as you would say. And I'll never forget it, JT. School Sisters of Notre Dame. That's the boogeyman for me.
I bet. How about you, Zane? Through, I know you got family history, your dad, your next generation, and would you say that that you are affected in some sense when it comes to boarding school?
Affected probably in a different way. Like my dad has already kind of stated, he tried his best not to influence us with that. But of course, as parents, those of you out there, no matter how hard you try to keep something away from your kids, it'll always kind of creep in there somewhere. Whether that's good or bad, or just looking on YouTube or having social media, having all these handles, kids will always kind of find a way. But probably for myself, it's got to be my environment. And what I mean about environment is I was raised here. I was born in Minot, and then I moved to Oklahoma. Then I came back not only to the reservation, but to Bismarck. And then I went off to college in Iowa. I came back to North Dakota to finish out my semester. And when I started to try to go out and find my career and find my way as an adult, I came back home. And throughout the different places you go, you learn different things, you understand different things about the world, and you see new perspectives. And when you have that fresh take and those fresh eyes, because all you've seen is something different everywhere you've gone, everywhere you've been. When I had home and I'm here now, and I'm working with my own people, I'm working with my staff, who some of them have never left the reservation. I'm working with some people who have left the reservation, who have an education, who don't have an education, and to them, they're affected by it. And when I continue to try to work and try to do good on my community, there's a little bit of a different worldview, because they have gone through those things, because they have those stories that are untold, or their kind of family secrets or their family lore, and it makes them who they are. And in that making them who they are, it kind of dictates their decisions. Maybe how open they are, maybe how much they want to talk, maybe how much something is important in the other. And for myself, since I've been a little bit of everywhere and I haven't really had that effect on myself, I'm very open. People at work say I'm probably open a little bit too much when I visit the visitors, whether they're from down the street in Ryder, or they're from Garrison, or maybe they're from Vermont, or maybe they're from across the pond in Germany or French. I'm very much, here's what it all is. Here's our scenario. I like to keep it as transparent as possible, and just because the whole figure of, oh, we're here to look at Indigenous, we're here to look at Native Americans, like, oh, you're supposed to be some kind of way, and I don't really want to play into the stereotype a little bit, but I'd say, yeah, that's kind of how it affects me, is the people around me. Because, of course, when I come in and I want to do ideas and I want to change things and I want to shake things up, you can't do it alone. You have to have your team. You have to have the community on your side. They have to understand who you are, where you come from, and what you want to do. And at the end of the day, they have to trust you. And if you come in as an outsider, well, nobody's going to trust you. But even as we make waves here, the more people you have on your side, the better. And some people still hold those grudges for a good cause, for a good reason. Some people have these things inside them where they don't want to do certain things, or they don't want to talk to certain people, and they don't want to have some of those conversations that are a little bit more difficult. But as in terms of myself and my generation, it didn't go so far as, okay, we're going to apologize, so that's good enough, right? For some people, like my grandfather and my great-grandfather, that's something that they probably needed. But for myself, living through that and hearing the stories and hearing people complain and hearing people know why, I look at things and I want to fix them. I look at things and I want to make them better. Okay, we've been stuck in this situation for so long, for a huge long time period. How do we get better? Let's get off of the conversation and let's start the action. Let's start the moving. And of course, you cannot have that until those words are exchanged, until those apologies are said, until those apologies are felt and accepted. Then you can let go and then you can move on. So I feel like, including this whole Biden thing and including a number of different legislation, government things that are being passed, we're getting closer to that time of, okay, let's move on and let's get somewhere. I feel like that's probably somewhere my generation is headed to. And of course, but you can't have that until you understand the past. You understand those stories. You understand where you came from, why we've been stuck for so long, and what's keeping us hindered. What are those chains made of that we're now breaking, and now we're going to move forward? Because, of course, you cannot understand what you're going to do in the future if you don't understand your past.
Nice. That's a hard-hitting quote right there. Thank you, Zane, for your insight. And yeah, that is very true. You know, we become affected by it unbeknowingly, but it is up to us to deal with it in a way that will lead to positivity for the future. And I read a statistic. To me, it made me feel good. You know, I've dealt with alcoholism in my life, and I'm going on 7 years this month, October, sober, which is a big step.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Yes.
And one of the statistics that I read was that your generation, you know, obviously there's a big age gap between us. They don't partake in alcohol as much as generations before you. And to me, that was kind of blown away, because you go to reservations, yeah, there's drugs and alcohol, but the most of the ones that are partaking in the alcohol are my age and above. And seeing like the younger ones become more involved in sports and the arts, Whereas back in, your dad's day and my day, in order to really do something with our lives, we had to put our mind into sports. You want to get out to res, go play ball, go play football, go do whatever, go run. And here it's like, you can create your way artistically. And I really think that's cool because we're starting to see a variation of creativity from all aspects. It's not just paintings and things like that. It's beyond that. It's creating like animations and things like that. So our people are really evolved into more than just sports to create a way for themselves.
Definitely.
And your generation has been doing a heck of a job just trying to get past the past of your father and before then and do positive by it. And that's what's really cool. And that's what I believe with this apology from Biden is that it's giving hope to the future. It's accepting and recognizing that they did wrong, but it's also taking accountability that, hey, we did do wrong and I'm sorry, And how many, that hasn't happened much. Especially with our indigenous people, a lot has, we've endured a lot. We've lost our language, our culture, tradition, heritage, and, we fought to keep it. And whatever little part that we have, we do our best to make sure that it goes on for generations. But yeah, so I want to thank Lawrence for bringing that up and sharing his thoughts, Zane on sharing his thoughts, and, I just want to thank all you guys and, our viewers here, listeners. You guys, give us your feedback on your thoughts about the topics that we were talking about. And, in closing here, I'll turn it over to, let's start with Lawrence. Any closing remarks there, Lawrence?
I want to say, JT, you were right. Zane does not drink at all. and so you're right. Myself, I'm not a quitter, so I've never actually said I quit drinking, although I have had 2 beers in the last 5 years. So slowed down maybe. And I agree with you, JT, that this is a part of all of that in the different generations and stuff like that, how it affects, because we've had for this, I don't know what the percentage would be, but right now we have a lot of athletes, Native American athletes, that aren't just in the basketball and football and running. We've got tennis players, we've got golf players, volleyball players. We've got them in all different sports.
Even rodeo.
And rodeo, yeah. And for the first time, I would say, because we all left the area to play. Like I went to play at the University of North Dakota. Everybody else has been sticking around. And what I mean by that is this Friday is the Mondac tournament. We've got a lot of maybe 9 or 10 women athletes that come from the MHA Nation that are either playing in Montana, Botno, United Tribes, BHS, Wahpeton. We've got them in all the different schools. And we were talking about that on the start and opening of the Storm and the United Tribes. It came on Saturday. And they were celebrating MMIW, which I think now it's R, which is the relatives, which includes Two-Spirited, boys, girls, women, all of it. The relative one includes all of them, but there are the different factions of that, and we're trying to celebrate that. And what I mean by celebrating that is to recognize that it is still going on, it is still not solved, and that it is an issue. I literally was on the phone today talking to not Montreal, Manitoba, And the Assembly of Chiefs want to talk about that from their perspective on the First Nation side to the Southern side. And in my endeavors, talking to different people, I talked to the lady down in Wanda Bowers down in Florida, and she's going to have a big red dress special to honor that too. She didn't realize, she thought this was an issue that the Canadians or the indigenous people in the middle of the United States had. She didn't realize that they had missing, murdered indigenous women on their reservation, and they started finding them. So it is everywhere in Indian country. And so they're going to celebrate that in February in their big powwow. But all of these things are happening. All of these topics, I know, JT, we're trying to talk about different topics, but the main thing I want to leave everybody with is positivity. And when I pray and when I do things in the morning and I get up, of course, I'm very grateful to actually have another day. But to the way I pray is to pray for all the people that have heard my voice, that need help, that are working through stuff. So I'm out there. I might not know the names, and that might be a COVID leftover deal, but I try to do that as best I can. And you know, they call me Dr. Controversy, and maybe that's because I give a little bit too much truth. But my deal is always trying to be uplifting our people and positivity, encouraging. I'm on the radio talking for different basketball, football games. Hopefully we're going to do it KMHA over in the Mondack tournament this weekend. So any which way I can with the healing voice that I have is always to encourage everybody that, you know, we're going to make it through. You know, we've endeavored the boarding schools. We've endeavored the United States government trying to get rid of us. We've endeavored all of these things, and we have come out with humor and joy. And again, if the healing process is crying, we might need to cry a little bit. Everybody needs to mourn in some kind of way to get us back to being at the part of healing. And where we want to be is healing. And in the day and age that we're at, when I was a child, I used to think that my dad and my grandpa were heartless because my grandpa had given up going to funerals. And my dad was sick of it. And I couldn't understand with the young eyes that I had because I never lost anybody. And now I'm closer to 60. I'm a junior elder. That's what I call myself. and through that, I've been through a lot of funerals and a lot of wakes. And I understand now what they were going through because they had buried almost half their family and friends. And they were just sick of it. You know, you turn around, you lose somebody. And nowadays, it's the same thing. Lost friends and people we're close to and relatives and all of that. So it gets kind of tiring. But we've got to hang in there and survive. There's another generation to talk to and to teach. And so those are the positive things that I want to leave the podcast with, JT. And hopefully that little bit that the United States government did by apologizing takes us in a realm of positivity and encouragement, and takes us into the next generation of how to deal with this PTSD and historic trauma and make us better. You know, so that's what I want to leave, JT.
Oh, thank you, Lawrence. Zane?
Jeez, well, I don't know if I can follow up with that, but of course I have to thank the Culture Stream podcast. Thank you, all you viewers. I appreciate you for thinking of me, thinking of myself, thinking of my father here to bring us in and have a conversation, have a visit, and we hope it gets you thinking. Because at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can talk, and JT can talk about the things that he's done, and my dad can talk about the things that he's done, and I can tell you all the things that I want to do. But at the end of the day, I guess to poke the same vein again, and you can really see just how I've been molded about with my father and the artistry there, and kind of making me into the man I am going to be, or hopefully to be, is try. Definitely get out there and try. Regardless if you fail, you did it. regardless if you get up and you fail again, you did it. And with that failure, you could learn, you get better. And that's the only way we will get better as a whole, is when you go through these things and you have a podcast and you go through all these different hoops. And those of you who are listening, you're thinking, well, I want a podcast too. Well, you can. You can do it. Grab a phone, grab a mic, sit around the coffee table just like we're doing and have a good time. Make a difference. Hopefully you'll inspire the next person to inspire the next person to become the leader that we wish we had or we want to be. But yeah, I just appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and love to do it again.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Zane and Lawrence, for coming on and to follow up with that. For those of you that could see, we have some merch here. I went around at Rapid City Pow and helped out the drum groups and bought a shirt, and want to kind of give a shout out to all the drum groups. I forgot one shirt, and that was Battle Nation. But they had a pretty awesome shirt. But we got TBZ, Bear Creek, Creek Federation, Ho Chunk Station, Black Lodge, I think that's Motown, and then Iron Boy. I might be missing one, but yeah. Well, I told you I'm missing Battle Nation. But in closing, I want to kind of touch on the same topic that Zane was expressed. And it is true. You can go out and do exactly what we're doing here at this podcast. And even if you need help, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to the team. I will do my best to help out in the best way possible. Because there's room for all of us to succeed. There's room for all of us to be on the same level and share different perspectives. You don't need just a Culture Stream perspective. Maybe you have a perspective that you want to share with the people. And who knows, it could be leading to something where we can all connect and really show the world that, hey, we're still here. We're thriving. We're surviving. We're doing the best we can for our future. And it's not, hey, I'm going to do it first and be the best at it. It's, you know what? I welcome everybody to be a part of this, because you have something to say and the people do want to listen. The people do want to hear our stories. They want to hear about our people. They want to hear about topics such as this, powwows, culture, heritage, tradition, things like that. Because our people, our ancestors, they weren't allowed to do stuff like this because it wasn't factual. And that's why there's books written by authors that are non-native, and nobody could correct them because they had the doctorate. And for us, we could speak for ourselves. We can do for ourselves. And that's what I love with the fact that with this podcast and all the supporters is that we're just hoping to inspire. We're hoping that we can get you guys to reach out and do your thing. But yeah, positivity is key when it comes to your walk of life. And I want to give a shout out to the brothers, Zoe, Tones, Jude. They've really been a big help in my journey with the Culture Stream podcast. My little brother Tanner for being the man behind the scenes. And we're going to be doing some live stream probably once a month, but this is our first episode. And TikTok, we're going to be on TikTok. We're going to be on YouTube, Facebook. But yeah, we're going to be live and yeah, just doing our thing. So again, I appreciate everybody that showed your support, that asked when we're coming out with the next podcast. We've been busy in our lives and, just had a lot going on. But here we are. And I'm happy to do it with Lawrence and Zane and commend them for coming on. But with that, thank you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Go Woods.